Sugary trees, fat squirrels. That is what we like to talk about here on the podcast.
Hello and welcome to Green Queens,
the perfect podcast for imperfect environmentalists.
We are your hosts. I am Abbie Dewhurst, and she is a rather bunged up Imogen Bhogal. Imogen Bhogal for today. Oh, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm a bit of a poorly Sue. Oh, honestly, it's I haven't been ill for a long time, but it's a classic case of just like things have been really busy and eventually your body catches up with you and it's like, no, my friend, here's a feverish sweat and a load of snot for you. So that's been the past few days, but at least I sound.
It's giving like sexy Phoebe from Friends vibes. So
I don't know if it is sexy, but I will let myself believe that.
Take that, yeah.
But you are in much sunnier climes. Where are you?
I am at the moment. I am in Portugal, I will say, with so I am kind of being daddy this week. My sister has 2 children and this is their family holiday. But her husband is in the army, Craig, and he has been called away to Africa for 3 months. So my sister is solo parenting 2 kiddies at the moment. And so I kind of last minute tagged along as Auntie Abbie / substitute father for the week. I don't know how I'm doing, but I'm here, I'm surviving. One of them is napping in the other room as we speak. So if I have to run away, that is where I'm going. So it has been a rather chaotic, albeit very lovely week of family time this week. But it's actually not very sunny in Portugal. It's been quite cloudy, but you know.
Well, it must be slightly less wintry than it is here. It has been like misty, autumnal, atmospheric here,
I would say autumn is the only time of year that the UK can get away with that sort of nonsense. Bit of mist, bit of murk, bit of like snuggly weather. I kind of feel like in autumn is appropriate. Winter, spring, summer, no. Autumn, okay.
What was it that you said on Instagram yesterday or today? Official sweater weather?
Yeah,
OSW?
100%. OSW, baby, we are there. And it is looking rather spectacular at the moment, autumn, because 2 things really. It is a mast year, which comes around every now and again, where our trees just like produce way more nuts and seeds, and it sort of tends to happen when they've been struggling a little bit to hopefully mean that the squirrels and all the other animals that eat the nuts get full up and there are some left, so that hopefully then they will be planted as trees of the future. But also because of the fact that we had a very, very warm and sunny spring and summer, there's just loads more sugar in the leaves. It's called anthocyanin, meaning that our trees are actually going to look way more colourful this autumn because of the fact that it was very sunny and very dry through spring and summer. So sugary anthocyanin-y trees mean that the leaves are looking gorgeous and very vibrant this autumn.
Goodness me, you are a fountain of knowledge. Sugary trees, who'd have thought?
I know, a little bit of sugar, fat squirrels, loads of great stuff going on this autumn.
We have a few stories that we want to get through today, and we've not done an episode like this for a little while, so this is quite exciting, I think.
It does feel quite exciting, I know, and I feel like we've kind of plucked some quite nice stories out of the ether for today because, you know, it's not always good news, is it? But considering we're off the back of the teddy bear episode, which was just joy of all joys, and if you've not listened to the Love Before episode that we put out last week with Charlotte, please do, because I think she is just phenomenal and she really is saving the world one teddy bear at a time.
Do you know, I will just say that I saw my dad yesterday and his wife Celeste, and we were catching up and they were asking me, you know, what are some of the latest episodes that you've done? And I said about Charlotte, and we spoke about teddy bears. And honestly, it just teed up this beautiful conversation about childhood and the value of like storytelling, the value of like the bears in your childhood. Celeste has been sending me pictures this morning of her with her bears from like, you know, the 50s and that kind of thing. And it just sort of emphasizes that point that, okay, sure, you know, this is not something totally revolutionary in terms of it's going to undo climate change, but it is a piece of joy doing something really, really good and is leveraging people's hearts and storytelling to do something amazing. So
something that we can all relate to. And I think as well, like it kind of plants the seed for you to then, you know, I'm like putting my nieces to bed on a night, giving them their teddy bears, and then you sort of look around the room at other things, and it just opens up your eyes, I think, to our touch points and the things that we like access in our day-to-day lives, and makes you think a little bit about what they might be made out of, what might happen to them when we're done with them. And it's just, it's a wonderful way, I think, to quite literally make people feel like they're part of the solution as opposed to the problem when it comes to gifting, which is amazing as we approach, gosh,
Christmas, we whisper it, and we are going to have a catch up about what episodes we're going to be doing for Christmas. But before then, let's revel in this autumnal joy, and go through these 3 stories. I have a little bit of paper here with them all written down. Shall I kick us off with number 1?
Kick us off.
Okay, so story number 1, it's a piece of good news. This is from earth.org, though I saw it reported in many places. Green sea turtles are no longer endangered species in major conservation win. How nice is that?
So nice. And again, I feel like we've said this before, we'll say it again. Anything adorable, particularly anything adorable that has cute little googly eyes, is a big fat win when it comes to making people happy in the climate conversation.
Well, I can imagine various newsrooms across the UK, well, across the world actually, were like, fantastic, this is a very easy win. We can put a picture of a turtle and people will click on that picture of a turtle. Lo and behold, I was one of them. I'm sure you were too. In fact, I think it was on your Instagram as well.
Oh yeah, I will have definitely shared that. Like, I am one of those like key people that's sharing all the good stuff. But I think it really highlights, doesn't it, that what might feel quite insignificant, like maybe 10, 15 years ago, somebody might have set up a project to do with, looking at conservation, looking at trying to, protect some of the animals that are on that endangered species list. And it may well have just been like a handful of people that started out doing the work that they were doing in order to, make sure that the nests for females were protected and people weren't able to hunt them anymore. And I think there was quite a few issues with regards to fishing and them kind of being accidentally caught in these fishing nets. And there was some work done, wasn't there, to build or like create certain types of nets that meant that they weren't able to be caught in them and caught up in them, because obviously nobody's eating a turtle, I hope. And so
God, I hope no one isn't.
All these tiny little touch points that people have been doing over the years, actually to have this huge, great, significant milestone now, just goes to show that if everybody just does a little bit, it doesn't matter how little, it doesn't matter what it is, it's that kind of collective effort, isn't it? And continued effort over years that makes a huge difference.
Well, that's it. And actually, exactly as you say, this has been ongoing for quite some time, because so these were listed on the IUCN Red List, and they were downgraded from endangered to least concern, which is great. So that means people aren't particularly worried about them.
Right.
Though, obviously, that's worth mentioning that there are some species of green turtle or certain species that are still slightly endangered, and particularly in areas of Costa Rica and Hawaii. So that is worth saying, like, there has been a win, but there is still, something to be worried about here. But those populations, I'm sorry, I'm looking over here, I've got my notes, I'm very well prepared today. But populations have rebounded approximately 28% compared to the 70s and 80s. And they had, at that point, declined by up to 67%. So
that's huge. I mean, if we would have carried on as we were in the 70s and 80s, I remember it well, then that number, we probably wouldn't have even had them anymore, would we? So that's huge. Not only are they not declining, they're actually increasing. Babies, fresh baby turtles, little green ones.
But it is, again, I sound like I'm being doom and gloom, but this list is worth having a little peruse at, and we'll definitely link to it in the notes. But there is obviously a broader biodiversity crisis. And actually, there are 48,646 species of the total of 172,620,000 that still remain threatened with extinction. So that's still a hefty chunk.
Yeah, over a
third
third.
Of extinction.
Is that right? Is my maths correct, Imogen? Over a third?
No, almost a third, just under a third.
Under a third. I knew I was somewhere near that. Look, I said to Imogen before we started the call, I was like, I've got baby brain. We were like, didn't actually birth it, but I'm looking after it. So
you're very much in, you need to be thinking about Bluey and oh God, Paw Patrol. That's where your brain needs to be this week.
Too loudly. We have to spell everything at the moment. We're like, are we going to go for an SWIM or maybe to the BEACH?
I'm like, could we have a WINE times 3, please?
You're telling me. So no, anyway, we digress. The baby brain is not kicked in. Just under a third of species are with extinction at the moment still, which is really sad. We've still got some work to do. I mean, the collective we, not you and I, but we've both said, haven't we, that we would love to get somebody on that's working in that side of things. We've not really done much with regards to like wildlife and nature on the podcast. So if any listeners work in that space or know of somebody that they think would be a great Green Queens guest, please pass them our way.
Oh,
That's no.
100%, because we definitely have a couple on our list who were like, "Ooh, come on, please be on the podcast." And especially because, I think we say biodiversity in nature and it can be this big, overwhelming thing. But, just taking the turtles as an example, obviously that shift wasn't just sort of down to one thing that moved them into the least concern category, but it was loads of stuff from like protecting nesting sites, curbing poaching, regulating fisheries, combating illegal trade. So these are just like hundreds and hundreds of things that all come together and push things forward. So there's just so many people each doing their little bit, and we want to talk to them and
Yeah,
showcase them. So
we do. And I actually watched, it was a really old, not really old, 2019, pre-COVID feels like prehistoric, doesn't it? When you
yeah,
but there was a documentary
BC.
out. Yes, BC. Before Christ, before COVID. There was a program out that Liz Bonin, God love Liz. Liz, please come on the pod. We're huge fans. She presented it, and it was it called The War on Plastic or something like that? It was one of those real great, iconic. Even if you haven't seen it, you no doubt will have seen clips of it going viral online. And I put it on again the other day because I think it's really good to. I remember Juliet Kinsman said. Everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since nobody was listening, we need to say it over again. And that's a really good example, I think, of like all the great documentaries, all the great programs, all the things that you have listened to and watched and read that have had a bit of an impact on your life. Don't just let it be something that happened once. Like rewatch it, and because you get different nuggets out of it, don't you? So I rewatched this plastic documentary, and it is incredible, but really harrowing. It was kind of one of the first times I think that the plastic problem was brought to like the mainstream media. These birds that live, I can't remember where now, like the Galapagos Isles or somewhere very exotic. And they were all in this wildlife sanctuary that Liz Bonin went to and met the people working there. And their literal full-time job every single day was saving these birds who quite often were just choking on plastic because they thought it was food. So they were scooping down, picking up, big like sections of water, thinking that what they could see bobbing around and it was fish and was food, and instead it's loads of plastic. And so they were like pulling bits of plastic out of these birds' throat. It was really, really sad, but also then very happy to see when they were saved. But in some instances, obviously, they were dying by it. So they were like dissecting these baby chicks. It was really, really sad. And their stomachs, their little baby bird stomachs, were just full of plastic. And it's like, it's really difficult to then go to the supermarket or go into your bathroom and see all these bottle tops and all these crisp packets and everything that we just use and don't even think, because that's the way the society is sort of taught us to be. But it really did have a big impact on me again, seeing it. And I already care. So then to kind of see that again and realise, oh God, no, actually I am still part of the problem. It was a brilliant documentary. It was on, I think I found it on YouTube. It was originally on the BBC, I think, but it was no longer on iPlayer. So it's still on YouTube to watch. But it just breaks your heart to think the harm that we've done over the years and the work that we've got to put into kind of trying to undo some of the damage that we've done.
Well, Liz Bonin, as we say, if you're listening, do come on and let's rewatch that. Well, I need to rewatch that documentary because I do remember it at the time. But as you say, it's very easy to forget these things that you watch, and it's useful to watch them again in a new context and armed with different information and actually calibrate, well, how much have things changed? How much is this top of mind and top of agenda? Or are we still in the same situation?
Yeah, and especially because a lot of the things that you were seeing were bottle tops, and they're now attached. So that came off the back of the beach cleans, the NCS beach cleans that collect data on what types of items they're finding on the beach. And because of the fact that they were constantly finding these bottle tops, they managed to feed that data back to the government and get the bottle tops attached to the bottle so that they all have to be recycled in one big movement. And okay, it's still plastic. It's not solving the problem, is it? Ideally, everyone would just have a refillable water bottle or whatever, but it is meaning that those caps won't get separated from the bottles, and the likelihood of them therefore ending up in our oceans is hopefully not as great a problem.
Well, there we go. That's exactly demonstrating the point. But
Yeah.
Speaking of birds, can I tell you about the next story?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so this is less a story and more something that I came across this week because I have been judging some sustainability films some sustainability-based films for some sustainability film award ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because the stories are all really valuable. Anything that these people are doing, I actually absolutely doff my cap to them. But there are different levels of production value that can go into these based on obviously the budgets behind these films. So I'm always watching them like, it's a bit harsh for me to judge. One film, for example, that had been made for Deloitte. So obviously they have huge budgets. And so whenever I'm ever looking at these, I'm like, well, what's the story that they're telling? And is the structure of the story really good? Even if, like how it's shot isn't particularly good. But there was one thing, I was kind of watching, like going through them sort of methodically. And then there was one which just totally blew my mind. And basically, every year, 1 billion birds die in the US because of collisions with glass.
Oh.
And this happens when they're migrating from south up through the north. They go along I think that it's like the Pacific Highway, basically, is the sort of the route. And 4 billion birds migrate south each fall, but only 3.5 billion return north. So quite a lot die. And in the US in general, excluding those migratory birds, in total, about 1 billion birds die each year.
That's so sad.
Which is an absolutely phenomenal number. But there's a really, really simple solution. In as much as basically when you've got glass, obviously the birds can see it as something that you could move through.
Mm-hmm.
But you can actually put markers on the glass that need to be a minimum of 2 inches apart.
Okay.
If they're a minimum of 2 inches apart, then the bird will see that as like something that they can't get through. And so on like really big high-rise buildings, what you could do is like you can put these external dots, which are actually very small. So for the person inside the building, you can kind of see past them and you'll forget that they're there over time. So it's like, wow, this is amazing for, big high-rise buildings. But actually, even for your own home, what you can do is like draw with chalk on the outside of your window with paint pens and actually make it a big activity that you maybe do with your kids or whatever, so that you don't just have these huge glass surfaces that birds could absolutely butt into and pass away. So the Smithsonian National Zoo and the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center in New York have both been really pioneering this kind of way to think about glass and how you can protect birds. But what a simple solution, and also so amazing because it's something that anybody could do, whether you own a massive office block or actually you live in a flat and just could decorate your own window.
But interesting that you're like, well, it's something that's like you can barely visible from the inside looking out. But even if you can see it, it's quite a nice thing to be like, oh, I'm of the Shard. I always laugh when I say that.
We're so mature.
I'm literally so immature. If you go up the Shard in London and you looking out the view and you amazing, rooftop bar or whatever it may be, and you see the dots, there's also quite a nice story to tell there, to be like, yay, the Shard care about the birds. That's so nice. And they can celebrate it. And everybody's, there's always a sign in the toilet saying, oh, please use water responsibly. How nice would it be if these amazing buildings had these dots and said, these dots are here because we're trying to save 1 billion birds. That would be so nice.
I always really enjoy a solution that is not massively tech heavy or super complicated. It's literally a dot on a piece of glass spaced evenly 2 inches apart. That is just so neat. Yeah. In terms of its elegance, its simplicity, and its impactfulness.
It really is. How a dot spaced 2 inches apart could save 1 billion birds off glass. It is, like you say, it's so not rocket science, isn't it? It's just that, often these things are so overlooked, and it's just kind of something that you take, like you see, a bird flies into the French doors and you're like, oh, so sad. But if humans were dying by walking into glass, somebody would do something about it. So why aren't we doing something about that? I think it's so great that some people are. Magnificent, love it. We'll definitely, next time we come to each other's houses, our windows will look like paint by numbers, join the dots. I do it anyway. I've got one of those white chalk pens, and I am that person that doodles on the inside of my windows with I'll do little houses, and I'll do little snowflakes. And I remember
Oh,
doing it one year when we had problems with our drains when we first moved into our house. So we had to get Yorkshire Water out all the time to like stick cameras in the drains. It was ridiculous. And there was a guy there really late at night, but I was like, well, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't feel like I could like get in my pajamas because he kept knocking on the door and giving me updates. So I was like, I'll just fill my time doing a few of the Christmas windows. I ended up doing the whole house. And by the time I left, this guy came in and was like, this looks amazing. But it's such a nice way to decorate your house. Obviously, eco-friendly because not using any plastic or real Christmas trees or anything like that. Literally just cleans off at the end of the season. And when the lights are on the inside of the house, just normal lights, and it is dark, it honestly looks so great. And I am protecting all the birds with my Christmas windows.
well, I don't want to burst your bubble here, but I am about to burst your bubble
Oh,
because in order for this to be effective for birds, it does need to be on the outside of the window.
oh, you joking me?
No. But to be fair, when it comes to Christmas, you'll already be too late anyway, because that's unless you're getting the Christmas decorations up very early, because they'd already be busy
True.
doing their migratory business. But you know, the point is normalizing window art. Let's normalize it all year round.
I love that you just let me tell that whole story, and then we're like, just one small caveat in that none of it will work.
It's almost there. You just do it outside on the outside of the window, and you're winning.
Chalk will wash away, but we'll discuss the logistics off the podcast. Okay. I'm very aware also that you are not very well. We're going to keep this episode short and sweet because you've also got places to be and people to see, and I've probably got a baby to do something with, no doubt. But I kind of felt like we couldn't let this episode pass by without. We haven't done an episode like this in such a long time, and there has been a humongous positive news milestone in terms of renewable energy for the first 6 months of this year. And if you've missed it, I feel like it needed to be something we celebrated on the podcast because there are so many skeptics around solar and wind and the switch to green technology, which is literally what you and I spend our whole entire lives talking about and looking into. But for the first 6 months of this year, renewables generated more electricity than coal, thanks to an increase in solar and wind.
Yes, and do you know what's amazing as well is that I think currently in the UK, more than 50%, it's like maybe just marginally, of our energy is coming from renewables, which is an astounding number. And again, I would point people to National Grid Live, and you can have a look at what the grid is doing at any one point. It's very interesting. And the whole commentary around this particular piece of news is that actually the economics just suggest that solar and wind in particular, cheapest forms of creating energy, batteries are increasingly the cheapest way to store it. But I think what is interesting, and this is something that with my other job I've definitely been spending some time thinking about, is that in this country in particular, we have the dubious honour of having some of the most expensive electricity in the world. And that's because a lot of the time, the cost of our electricity is determined by the price of gas.
Mm-hmm.
And also, a lot of the kind of green levies are put on our cost of electricity. And so gas for our like central heating or what have you remains artificially low.
Just, can you explain the green levy situation?
I will get back to you on that one because I want to do it justice.
Maybe we could ask them one.
I will. Yeah, we definitely should, because basically what it means is we have this thing called the spark gap, and it just means that gas is so much cheaper than electricity. And in order for, and it just doesn't make sense when the cost of generating via renewables is so low. So definitely this is a huge bit of good news, and it really says to the market, well, come on then, renewable electricity has to be cheaper. And we've got to make it cheaper than gas, and we need to sort of look at what our energy markets are doing more generally, which I personally think is great.
I agree.
And I would direct people to I'm going to link to it, I'm making a note of it now, but to a Martin Lewis podcast actually, that kind of probably explains some of that a little bit more eloquently than I have just done. But yeah, we should all care about the cost of electricity.
And especially because what I found really interesting about this, like I say, it was something that was in the news a little bit, but I think maybe could have easily been missed if you're not like green geeks like me and you, but is that actually this kind of shift and this huge celebration within the first 6 months of the year, it's not a UK stat, that is a worldwide stat. And actually the vast majority of the hard work and of the renewables side of things is coming from China, it's coming from India, it's coming from Pakistan, it's coming from Nigeria, it's coming from the places that a lot of people would probably assume are more part of the potential problem than the solution. And it's because like solar in those parts of the world now is so cheap, as is like batteries, and any body really that has a property of any sort can go and buy a tiny solar panel and a tiny battery for very cheap now in places like that, stick them on their roofs, stick them on the balconies. I would say the vast majority of properties in China nowadays do have that and generate their own electricity. They are so cheap, and that kind of isn't something that's quite caught on here in the UK and unfortunately in America as well.
So it's interesting because I think 4% of households here in the UK have solar, 1% have a heat pump, which is very low. In Australia, actually, Australia's had some days recently where they've had 78% of their grid has been supplied by renewables. In Melbourne, in the state there, they had 155% of their electricity provided by renewables, but obviously a lot of that was exported. So a lot of these shifts, especially in China and India, it is sort of grid scale rather than domestic. Whereas like, in Australia, not having solar on your roof is like just totally dumb because there's so much sun. So it's these like two things happening in tandem where you get this huge grid scale and also like domestic electricity is really supported as well. And in the UK, like we've got loads of work to do because, solar is really cheap. It is really cheap. And we do have some fantastic grid scale deployments of renewable energy. But getting scaffolding, quite expensive.
Very expensive.
So it's like, it's all those little things that kind of put these barriers to making this stuff possible. But I'm optimistic that irrespective of how you feel about the environment, the economics are such that renewables is just logical. And that's all there is to it.
It fills me with quite a lot of hope that in the not too distant future, we will all have little to no electricity bills, which is welcome news, especially if you're an EV driver.
100%.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a little tangent, but I've just written a very strongly worded email to Oxford City Council.
Yes, how is that going?
Well, basically, so for a little bit of context, the planning situation for getting a home charger, if you don't have a driveway, is very clunky and very expensive currently in Oxford. They have asked for like architectural drawings and a planning fee of £342 or something. So then I was like, okay, well, how much am I already paying more than someone who has home charging? So I compared costs for someone who maybe does 80% of their charging at home, 20% using the public network versus what I would pay. And basically I'm paying something like over £2,000 more per year. And then that doesn't factor the about £1,000 of planning. So this is like a £3,000 delta. And I'm like, well, the problem with that is that pays for Soho Farmhouse, where the charging is free. And that is totally illogical, totally at odds with Oxford's net zero goals, and is a huge barrier for EV ownership. It just doesn't make sense. So I did put the Soho Farmhouse bit in my email.
You did. Good for you. Good for you. Because do you know what? If the local councils are not going to support you charging at home, then you can spend your money charging in the luxury of a heated outdoor pool.
What I would laugh at, and I kind of hope that Charlotte, I think she's called, Charlotte from the council, comes back with is like, do you know how much they charge for coffees there and croissants? Like, you're not getting good value. This is still better.
Oh, there was no mention of you eating or drinking when you were there. You can take your own coffee and croissant into Soho Farmhouse and charge it free.
I will take my Tupperware and I will go people watching and I will charge my car.
Little story as well about when you did still have a membership there, and we went for the day and had a lovely day, but I didn't know that the charging was free. So I got their Pod Point, right, okay, went onto the Pod Point, annoying Pod Point app where you had to load money onto my account, loaded £50 onto my Pod Point app because I thought, well, I have to get all the way back to Yorkshire after this day. Plugged it in, oh, it's not working, what's going on? And you said, oh no, the charging here is free. I was like, I'm sorry, what? I still have the £50 sat in my streaming Pod Point account.
And I was like, oh, maybe she can just turn it on from her Pod Point account. That's what I was thinking about. And because if I know what you're doing, I felt very bad.
Never mind. Look, it was £50 well spent, if you ask me, swimming in that pool. Anyway, let's quickly wrap this up because I'm aware that you have to be somewhere. But we do have a sustainable business shout out to do.
We do, and we have, having said at the beginning of season 3, we're starting this new thing. We've been a little bit flexible about it, I will say. But this is a really good one, so I'm excited. You've heard it. I don't think I have. Or have you heard it?
I've saved it. I know the company, but I do not know what this voice note says. So
it could be really sweary. This is exciting.
Well, if it is, then get ready to edit some serious beeps into this. Sustainable business shout out. Who are you and what do you do?
Hello, my name's Flora and I'm the founder of Washed Up Cards. This is a social enterprise that kind of came out of a lockdown hobby. I was furloughed for my job in sustainability and kind of feeling very spare in that time. And I started going on litter picking, beach cleaning walks along the River Thames, collecting plastic, whatever I could find on those walks, just to feel like I was doing something, having a bit of a purpose, a reason to get out of bed. And it just really helped me during quite a rough time. Mentally, being near the water, it's kind of meditative, looking for plastic in the sand, in the mud and rocks along the Thames. So yeah, that became a bit of a therapy for me during that time. And I also, because I love crafts and also wasn't doing much with my life at that time, I started making little greeting cards to send to friends and family to keep in touch with people during that period where we weren't able to see anyone. I was in a bubble, but generally living on my own during that time. And the cards just became a nice way of keeping in touch, but also spreading awareness about plastic and what I was finding on the Thames. Fast forward 4 years on, I now run it, as I said, as a social enterprise where I've taken over 100 companies and schools beach cleaning. So for me, yes, the cards help spreading awareness about plastic pollution, but people started saying they wanted to join me on Beach Clean. So I now run it, like I said, as a social enterprise where I take people out on the Thames and around the UK cleaning up the beaches. And I also run workshops where we make art and greeting cards with the plastic. And I've recently just made a massive shark sculpture. Not many people know that there are sharks in the River Thames, over 5 species of sharks. So I made a spur dog shark out of plastic that we'd collected to help really engage people on plastic pollution, but also celebrating hidden wildlife like we have in the Thames. So that's a little bit about me. And I would love to tell you more about it one day.
Sharks in the Thames.
And I knew that you'd love that. She emailed me about, and in fact, I saw, so Flora, thank you so much, Flora, for our sustainable business shout out from Washed Up Cards, a gorgeous social enterprise. They collect litter from the River Thames, and then she makes greetings cards with little bits of litter, but looking gorgeous and really cute. And it's so worth a follow on Instagram, on all the socials. And if you are a company or a school that want to get involved, I'm sure Flora would absolutely love to hear from you. But yes, I've seen this humongous, great shark sculpture that she made, obviously out of like hundreds of bags of litter that she collected. But what was really sad is that she left some of them. I think like a couple of bags she'd had to leave outside of her home or something one night, and they got taken away. And she was like,
oh
no, she'd been collecting litter to make this shark sculpture for absolutely ages. So she was quite rightly fuming about it. But yeah, sharks in the Thames, who knew?
Oh my God. Well, every day is a school day, and we have spoken about lots of nature today, which is great. And also, particularly for thumbnail creation purposes, it makes my life much easier.
Yours and your because our thumbnails are made by Imogen's husband, Deep.
They are. Yes, that I should not have taken any kind of credit for that. I just merely sent him some bullet points. But I'm so excited also to link to all the various things that we've mentioned today. There's some real goodies in there. So this has been fun. And sorry, I'm so snotty and gross.
I love the fact that we ended the podcast with a nose wipe by you.
The great thing is that what we know is that the majority of people listen to this podcast and don't watch it. And therefore, I get away with all manner of sins.
That's true. Well, I strongly advise, if you've not watched any of the podcasts so far, do head to YouTube because it's well worth watching Imogen's nose wipe at the end of this.
And do subscribe. If you're going to be there, please subscribe.
Why not, eh? Because we've actually got so much good stuff planned over the next few weeks and months.
We really have. And also, we need just a full-on planning day. We need an admin day. We can't do any podcasting. We need to purely be business queens.
Do you know what? I really went to say admin to be like, that's fun because it's a play on my name, but it's kind of a play on mine and your names together. We could do Abim.
Abim. We're doing some Abim. There we go.
Okay, you can tell that I'm spending a lot of time with a 5-year-old. Auntie Abbie, how do you spell green?
Oh, well, honestly, you should have, I hope you have the loveliest time with him. I know it'll be exhausting. I know that it will be testing, but it will also be glorious and wholesome, I'm sure, as well.
Very much so, indeed. We're making memories, like you say, core memories are being made this week, which is very sweet. And I hope that you feel better soon. If nothing else, you've powered through a good 35 minutes. I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to give myself a solid 5 out of 10. That I appreciate.
9.5, I would say. There was just a 0.5, maybe the cough. Go get yourself a little sip.
Oh, I will. And you go get yourself a sangria, ideally, or something. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Green Queens. If you did and you'd like to hear more, we'd be so very grateful if you could like,
subscribe, and join the Green group chat for weekly episodes.